You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
All right, welcome back to another edition of For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. It has been a bit since we've dove back into our rewatch of the Clone Wars, but we are back to discuss the Nute Gunray episodes of Clone Wars. We're talking Bombad Jedi, Cloak of Darkness, and Lair of Grievous. I am one of your hosts today, Andrew, and we got the full crew here with us. Don, Conor, and Jake are all here. Feels like it's been forever. How are all of you today?
I'm good, man. Thanks.
I'm very tired.
Yeah, no, I'm exhausted. But we're gonna get through this.
Life is very lifey.
Yep.
We're all still reeling from
We're gonna
Kenobi,
get through it thanks to...
later.
No, serious. Like, last week we put out our
we're gonna get through it thanks to Jedi Jar Jar.
Exactly. Couldn't have worded it better myself. If you missed it last week, we did put out our super duper late series recap of Obi-Wan Kenobi. That was just Conor and I doing it because our schedules have been horrific the past few weeks. That's a big reason why we have been kind of dormant in episodes throughout the month of July. But we're trying to get back there. This is going to be the kickstart to get us back into this thing. A couple things right off the bat that I personally want to talk about before we get into these episodes, because I have a lot to say about these episodes in a good way, because the last time we watched some Clone Wars stuff, it was those droid episodes, and I don't think we're going to bring those up again ever.
No, we don't have to do that.
No.
I
actually have something in my notes comparing something in one of the episodes to Goldie, but I'll get to that later, and then that'll be the last time I bring that up.
Oh, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I think I know.
But personally, I finished Brotherhood 2 nights ago, I believe, at this point. And I said on Twitter, but it is one of my top 3 Star Wars canon novels now. It is utterly fantastic.
Nice.
It is a perfect Obi-Wan and Anakin story, and I hope to do a full-fledged discussion about that book at some point in the future, because there's just so much I want to talk about. I love that book so much. I also
it's so good.
It's so good. But I don't want to, because Conor and Jake haven't gotten to it yet, so I don't want to go full into it yet.
Don't care about spoilers personally for later on, either in this episode or whenever.
And that's
I finished it like earlier in the week.
The duality of man.
Yeah,
right there.
Duality of man.
I just love like almost everything in that book. It was such a great read, and I love how Mike Chen writes these characters, and I hope he gets to.
He seems to get them so well.
I was shocked really how well he wrote
the way
Anakin
he talked
and Padme.
about that all on Twitter.
Yeah, like it's
and he even used parts of like well, I won't say it, but he used like the way he's used parts of other books and the films.
Yeah.
It's really good. And
There's
like also like he has these new characters. Yeah. I could go on for ages about it, honestly, because I love how he writes Obi-Wan and Anakin, and his understanding of them and what makes them tick is just so good. And he gives them, and it's a real nice transition from like Attack of the Clones into like the Clone Wars. It's a perfect coda in a way.
Exactly. And we get the canon reason for that business on Cato Nemoidia, and whether or not it does count, which I will save for the full review.
Doesn't count.
Ooh, I'm the opposite. I think it does count. But yeah, I'm sorry, Obi-Wan, but we'll get there. The other thing that I want to bring up, because I'm pretty sure all of us have read it at this point, is Star Wars number 25 that came out last week. What an issue!
Oh, that was so good.
Oh, God, I haven't read it. I was like, nope, sorry.
Conor,
the post story.
I gotta be in a mood.
The post story got me really, really misty-eyed. I just gotta say that. Like, I was not expecting to get so emotional over Snap, because I've had really no connection to Snap besides, oh, that's Greg Gumberg.
See,
But,
you were
like-
emotional over Snap. I was emotional over somebody else.
Ooh. I mean, I haven't.
I was kind of like,
I haven't
Can
read
we
the.
talk spoilers? Can I say spoilers?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I haven't read the Poe comics, so like that's probably like if I did, I would probably be like on the floor crying. But
I was
Yeah.
bawling over Mr. Bones. Rest in peace, my boy.
yeah,
You
I
will be missed
forgot about
forever.
that. Oh,
I was kind of
Damn.
ambivalent because I don't
Right.
know that character from Aftermath, but I'm expecting to feel like a sudden rush of emotion once I finally get into like Chuck Wendig's Aftermath books. But like overall, like the issue is really cool. I love that I love how it celebrates like Charles Soule's history with Star Wars and like all the characters he's touched and written. And like obviously my favorite was the Obi-Wan and Anakin story. Like I just
That one
Obi-Wan
was
talking
awesome.
about
really
why the
good.
Jedi use lightsabers and not a lightsaber like blasters or bombs or any of that. It's so perfect and such a great distillation of why the Jedi are. And then you get like the Palpatine and Vader story, and like you have
It's the exact.
you've got
opposite.
like it's the exact.
I love how
opposite.
that one is just
Great.
like Palpatine's just like, fight me.
I said to my one friend, I'm like, why is Palpatine being like, ew, you fight like a Jedi? It's like him like on the playground, like, ew, you fight like a girl, Darth Vader. Like, ew. Like that's just how I read it
Palpatine's
as.
a bitch.
It's actually like that kind of stuff.
And it's like
no, I do not fight like a girl.
it's like the Jedi, like, yeah, we fight with a lightsaber because we don't, the weapons and stuff. And then Palpatine's like, no, like we use lightsabers, but our main power comes from the dark side of the Force. And it's like,
Which also explains why like Palpatine's not like that big on using them in like Return of the Jedi. Like, oh, that's why he favors Force lightning, because he's like, the lightsaber's just like a secondary thing, really. I mean, it's interesting because there's obviously that whole line of thought in Fallen Order of like, it's a line that Conor will big up quite a lot. Like, you having a lightsaber isn't what makes you a Jedi. Which is very true, because it's like it's about a Jedi spirit. But I do love how the comics and the books find a way to big up, find a way to like what's the word? Find a way to
enhance
expand
or
like,
expand.
yes,
Yeah.
enhance the Jedi's connection with the lightsabers and what a lightsaber means symbolically to a Jedi, and why they use it and what they feel it represents. And it's just that whole speech with Obi-Wan is just peak Star Wars, and I love it.
I loved his thing with the
read
two
it.
sabers on the chain. I was like, oh, that visual. It's like
That-
Padawan
okay.
Obi-Wan.
Do y'all remember in Battlefront, the OG Battlefront 2 from 2005, when you would play as Ventress, how she had the two lightsabers attached to the chain like they were nunchucks?
No, but
I didn't know.
That's how Ventress plays in Battlefront 2005.
Wait,
in
okay.
Battlefront 2.
Is she in the console version?
Yeah.
She is.
I've never
What?
been able to
I
play
don't
as
know at
Ventress
all.
in that game.
Like,
She is playable when you play on Renvar during the Clone Wars.
Oh, Renvar.
oh wait, you're talking about? Are you talking
Oh.
Battlefront or Battlefront 2?
Battlefront 2. Battlefront doesn't have heroes. Battlefront 2 from 2005.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's fascinating.
Where is Renvar in 2005 Battlefront 2?
It's down to the bottom. There's Citadel and Harbor.
well, how have I
Right,
never?
I know way too much about this.
I
Those
was
are
gonna
my, like,
say
two of
this is
my...
one of my favorite
Wait,
games of all
favorite
time. I have
maps.
no idea.
Wait, Renvar is in 2005 Battlefront 2, because in all of my years of playing it, I've never seen that as a map.
I've never seen
Oh,
it.
she's DLC.
Have y'all
That's
not
why.
scrolled down?
No, she's
Wait.
DLC. She's only available. She's
she's-
only available in Battlefront 2 because of an Xbox Live patch. That's why, because she's not on the version of the game that I
serious?
have.
I was gonna say
Wow.
I've played it. I've played it
I thought
on
it was
PS2 my whole
crazy.
life, and I've never.
Yeah, I
seen
thought
that.
it was
Wait.
going nuts.
I've gone years without
She's
realizing
only-
that.
Xbox One?
I guess so.
Oh, and Kit Fisto
Okay,
apparently
because
as
I
well.
had...
Kid Fisto.
Yeah, Kid
Shit.
Fisto.
Yeah.
He's shirtless.
Oh, I gotta get an
Dude,
original.
I gotta look this
I gotta
up.
get an OG Xbox just.
Oh, I
Dude,
got
I
it.
gotta get.
I gotta check
Just
out
get
Battlefront
any
2 now.
Xbox. I've been replaying Battlefront 2 excessively on my Series X with backwards compatibility.
Look,
Oh, sweet.
I tried to get
I
my
need to do
friend
that.
to sell me her Xbox Series X, and she left me on red. So that didn't work.
That's evil.
Um,
Well, I don't think you need an X because I used to play it on my one, whatever the hell the one from like 8 years ago was. I played a backwards compatibility on that too, and she was in it.
No,
Dude,
yeah.
Ventress in 2005 Battlefront 2, her face is the stuff of nightmares.
oh my, I'm gonna.
She
Google
looks
it
so
now.
much cooler than she does in canon. I'm sorry, but like those stupid little mouth tattoos look like she's just drooling.
Oh my goodness.
let's see.
Whoa, she looks.
I mean,
she
that's
looks like a
fair.
fucking
They
zombie.
do look odd, but like it's just the graphics of it,
It's like-
like
Her mouth
stuff of
tattoos are
nightmares.
like
Right
Yeah,
there.
that's kind of spooky.
her mouth
She's
tattoos are kind of
so
like Blade, aren't
spooky.
they? Like where he's got the tattoos that like lead into his hairline, which basically means he can't have any other hairstyle because like he's literally
Yeah.
cut his hair exactly so he can have the tattoos on the side of his head. That's kind of what it feels like with Ventress,
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah,
But, like,
honestly.
So the one thing I had a question of about the Vader story before I talk about the Kylo one real quick. Maybe it's because I'm just have not read much of the Vader comics, but was that a different lightsaber, or was Charles Soule just drawing Vader's saber a bit differently? Because it looked like a new saber to me.
So I can tell you, yes,
Okay.
it is an intentionally different saber. So like, without getting too much into spoilers, like the first volume of Charles Soule's Vader run, it takes place literally right after Revenge of the Sith, and it's all about like it's literally about Vader building his new lightsaber, and that's where we get the whole detail about like it's how the Sith turn their lightsabers red because they bleed the kyber crystal. They infuse the crystal with all of their hatred and anger, and that's what turns the crystal red. And it has to be from another Jedi. Yeah, so I won't go too much into that, but yeah, like his whole mission from there is like about building his lightsaber, and that's why he has a different one. So
Gotcha.
Also, like,
it's fantastic.
such a great arc.
Yeah.
the Vader comic.
I
by
have
Charles
the
Soule
trade
was
paperback
good. I mean,
in my room. I'm gonna start it like as soon as I possibly can.
yes.
I've
You should
reread that
do.
arc like 3 times, I think.
Yeah, me too.
It's so good.
It really is. Like I'm up to like volume 3 with the Mon Cal storyline, and it's so good.
Dude, everything in that comic is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
But we should talk about Clone Wars.
Yeah,
we should.
I was just gonna say that Kylo arc was. I mean, the Kylo story was great too. It was haunting.
Yes. Yes, that's the last thing I'd say.
yeah,
The Kylo
it
Ren
was
story
haunting.
is really good, and like kind of that's them kind of like doing a little bit of like damage control because of the fact that the line
Yeah.
"See you around, kid" was never paid off, which really frustrates me still. But like,
Yeah.
I like that Charles Soule took that line and paid it off, and it's a little sad that we see that like Kylo Ren has like the Jedi Temple on Ossus like bombarded, but like it was a very Kylo Ren thing to do, and
Yeah.
no one's gone back there, so
Exactly.
you know.
And I love that Charles Soule gave us our first post Rise of Skywalker stories in canon. That I think this is the first one.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It is.
But it's
Yeah.
not
He gave us our first post Last Jedi stories in the comics, so pretty
Yeah.
fitting he does it with Rise of Skywalker.
Skywalker, yeah. And it was
Very
a great
true.
story. And it's not canon, but we got the clip from the new Lego special today and the poster, and that looks so much fun.
I haven't watched that yet. I have to.
Finn is hilarious in it, but I'll talk about that when it drops. But now, Conor's right. Let's get into these episodes because I have so much to say about these ones. The one thing that I loved about this arc was the fact that I loved all 3 episodes more than I was expecting, but I loved all 3 of them for different reasons. Like, they were an arc and they all connected, but they were such different. Like, Bombad Jedi was like a comedy, Cloak of Darkness was like a straight up action, and then Lair Grievous was like kind of like a horror story, or like a survival mission. And they all worked together so well, which I was shocked by, and all bring them together through Viceroy Gunray, which is Jake's guy. Jake loves some Nute Gunray. But yeah, we'll get into that. So Our first episode was Bombad Jedi. It was directed by Jesse Ye, written by Kevin Rubio, Henry Gilroy, and Stephen Melching. Our moral is heroes are made by the times. We start off, Padme is on a mission to Roidia to talk to her former family friend, Senator Farr. She is with C-3PO and Jar Jar Binks. The first thing I pointed out is, yes, I am so excited that we're going to get a Padme story, because I love me some Padme stories. And she is wearing the Geonosis outfit, which is, we love to see it. That's peak Padme right there. And Palpatine is worried for her because she's going without a clone escort. But Padme's like, nope, she's just there to help a friend. She doesn't need military or anything like that. And it just shows the kindness of Padme's character, that she's willing to potentially put herself at risk just to save someone that she cares about from her past. And that's one of the big things that I love about Padme as a character. I've always loved about Padme as a character is her kindness in her heart, which is on display throughout a lot of the Clone Wars and a lot of these stories. And we also get Jar Jar's Clone Wars look, which I'm always a big fan of. I love his Clone Wars outfit.
Same.
Yeah, like with the
It looks so goofy, but
loose,
like
yeah, because he's got the kind of like the loose fitting tie, and to kind of
I
show
love the tie about it.
yeah, like how it swings around, because it's kind of like it shows that he's sort of a dignitary, but he's also not really, because he doesn't have the decorum of like a full senator, like the way Padme does.
Like he kind of is, but he's also a mess.
Yeah, that's definitely the case with Jar Jar. Like I'm very excited to talk Jar Jar for this in this episode, in this whole episode, because it's like
you can tell right off the bat that like he's gonna mess some stuff up just by some of the lines and some of the things they're hinting at. It's like, some stuff's gonna happen.
There's like a bit later on in the episode when like Padme finds out that the ship has been destroyed, and like without pause, he just asks 3PO Jar Jar, and 3PO goes Jar Jar.
3PO had me in stitches this whole episode. I'm just gonna say that right now. Like
he was so fed up, but also like wasn't annoyed with Jar Jar. Like he was like, "No, Jar Jar's dead," and then he's like,
No.
"You're a fool."
It's great. When they arrive at Rodia, I'm just gonna say I love the score. Like Kevin Kiner's score in these episodes is like so good, and like I just immediately, like, the score caught my attention. I was like, okay, that's awesome, and I just love the look of Rodia. I'm a sucker for the swamp and the aquatic planets. Like that's just always been my thing, is like water worlds.
Oh my god!
So Rodia looks so cool.
I basically forgot about this episode, besides it being a Jar Jar episode, before I rewatched it, and I just fell in love with the design of Rodia. Just the strength of Clone Wars to me overall is just like the amount of wacky and unique looking planets that they have is immeasurable.
Yeah, no, they
really go all out with like the prequel-esque
looks
designing, which like obviously like that makes sense. It's set in the prequels, but like it really is just like dope as hell seeing like something that isn't just like a sand planet or a mountain planet or a jungle planet.
Yeah. And it also kind of like makes sense because like the Rhodians are very much, they've got kind of like an insect design anyway, so it would make sense that they would hail from like a kind of swampy world, more or less. And I like that it has its own like thriving ecosystem of like creatures and stuff, like how they like have their own, and how they have their own vocabulary and everything, and their own language, and how they're like rude to 3PO and Jar Jar. And there's that great bit where Jar Jar tries.
It was
how rude.
How rude.
Just loved it. And I just, the one thing that stuck out, because again I have to bring up those episodes from our last time, but the big thing that we were talking about specifically with Downfall of a Droid was how bad the whole episode looked. So to get an episode like this and the other two where the animation is just beautiful, and like every time that I was, because this came out in late 2008, but every time like there was an underwater scene in this episode, I was just shocked of how good the animation looked. Like that was just one of my highlights for this episode.
It didn't have like the video game-esque feel to it. like those other episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there were like a couple shots like where Padme is like jumping to like fight to like shoot the droids that felt a little stiff. But other than that, like everything.
Yeah, the
like,
big thing there is the movement itself,
Yeah.
not so much like the
Yeah.
lighting and
Yeah.
the textures.
Exactly. Like, but like you said, the underwater stuff looks great. Like the lighting, the way is like when Jar Jar was like swimming through the frame, I was like, oh wow, the light. I was like really struck by the lighting and how well lit he was and how much like dimension the scenery had because of that. And I love the design of that like water slug as well.
Yeah, no, that was a really cool looking creature.
I love the little water slug guy.
Every time they like have like aquatic creatures introduced, I'm a big fan. It just reminded me of the There's Always a Bigger Fish from Phantom Menace, like those type of designs.
I was literally going to say the line exactly. Yeah.
There was a couple kind of fun like Phantom Menace callbacks in this one though, like the fart joke with the how rude, like that's Phantom Menace. I feel like I think there was a musical cue that lines up when Jar Jar was being chased by the slugfish underwater that was similar to the one that plays when they're being chased by the gooberfish.
Yeah, and then Padme and
think
Jar
there's another
Jar
one, but I
is
can't
just
remember.
a Phantom Menace pair in itself.
Yeah.
So, it was really, and then Nute Gunray being the main villain. Like this, there was a lot of Phantom Menace parallels in this episode. I have written down, Padme tells Jar Jar to stay with the ship so he doesn't pull a Jar Jar and fuck everything up. And spoiler alert, that doesn't happen. He fucks everything up. But in a beautiful, beautiful way. The one thing that I really did enjoy about this episode was how well I think they did at making the relationship between Senator Farr and Padme feel like important and strong. I was under the impression that this was the first time the character had appeared, but when I did more research, he was actually in the first two movies in the prequels, and I know he was in two or maybe all of the Padme books that E.K. Johnston wrote, because I remember him popping up in Queen's Hope, but he was in Queen's Shadow, I believe, as well.
Wait, he was in Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones?
Apparently, I looked it up on Wikipedia, and he's one of the senators from Rhodia in those movies. So he must be a background character, but he's in
he's
them.
definitely a background character.
Yeah, probably in those same shots where we see E.T.
Yeah.
Yep. Fucking E.T.
Which I had no idea, because I thought he was created specifically for the Clone Wars. But I look and it says Phantom Menace first appearance. I'm like, what? So I thought
wait a minute.
Yeah, I thought it was a retcon, but they had like words about how they created the character and stuff. So I was surprised by that.
It's what George does.
It's what George he brings these random background characters back. It's like, oh, yeah, that Rhodia. Let's make him important in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, let's bring the Rhodian that's like just in the Senate meeting. Let's just bring him in and give him like a whole backstory. Yeah.
But immediately he's like, he questions Padme. It's like, the Republic really hasn't been here to help us since the war began. And we find out that he's taken an offer from Count Dooku and he's joined up with the Separatists, which is, I feel like this is a theme in a lot of these early Clone Wars episodes, is insert character will go on a mission to insert planet. They are tempted by the Separatists, but then they end up joining up with the Republic by the end of it. We saw this with Ambush earlier on with Toydaria, and now we're seeing it here with Rhodia. But I feel like it's always like, it's an easy story to tell. Like, it's a simple story. It'll get you through an episode. You can introduce some new characters. But I wouldn't say it's like generic or bad or anything like they can always get good stuff from.
They're able
like
to mix it up enough, like it doesn't feel repetitive. There's always some kind of different theme or like lesson to be had. Like they don't really like retread on stuff, even though they're telling what is essentially the same story.
Yeah.
And this one, there was added stakes to it because we have that dynamic and that pass between Anaconda Farr and Padme. Whereas even if we haven't seen it, the episode really like spends the first 3 or 4 minutes hyping up how important he is to Padme. So when she finds out that he did join the Separatists, it hurts, and we're like, okay, so we got to get him back on our side now.
Yeah, and there's like the way D. Bradley Baker kind of like performs the character.
Yeah.
There's a weathered nature to his voice, so you know that this is like a hard decision for him, and that he has like the weight of the entire world that he's representing on his shoulders. And it's also kind of like you said, Jake. It's like it's not. It doesn't feel generic or like just a repeat of what happened with Ambush, because you've got the with the involvement of Padme and Nute Gunray, you've got this nice parallel with like the Phantom Menace, because this is what Padme had to stand against, basically being bullied by the Trade Federation into like signing away her planet's freedom. And this is kind of what Senator Farr is being manipulated into, and she can see it, but he's blinded by the plight of his people, which is an understandable reaction.
Oh yeah, definitely. Gunray shows up. I love that Tom Kenny is the one voicing him. Like, that just seems like a match made in heaven. Is Tom Kenny voicing Nute Gunray, and he's such a sleazy, cowardly son of a bitch in this episode, which Jake loves. But I
fucking love my sleazy bitch ass boy Nute.
He shows up. He's got a couple.
That needs to be on a shirt.
My sleazy bitch ass boy.
That needs to be our first piece of merch.
Our first ever for the Republic.
Yeah, and it's like like a spotlight shining on Nute Gunray as he's trying to run away. Like you just thought him
drawn picture of Nute running away.
You gotta have like little hearts and shit all on it.
God, he's got a couple great lines in Cloak of Darkness too, but he was.
Oh yes,
I do love that whenever Nute Gunray and Padme come into conflict in literally anything, like Padme still has that, like she something about her changes because she's still affected by the invasion in the Phantom Menace, and I think stuff like, even though we only really see it as like, oh, it's like an occupation in the movie, other stuff has really built up how like traumatizing and scary that was for the people involved. And I think, say what you will about EK's writing, but I think the fact that she had several of the handmaidens have like really direct trauma related to the invasion. I think it's Sache in particular was tortured by the Trade Federation, and she's got all those scars around her. So that does every time that they go back to that story from Phantom Menace, I'm always impressed with the more they can add to it. But I definitely, I think that's a real big strength. So Padme,
it's a really nice example of good supplementary material though too, because like, don't get me wrong, Phantom Menace has always been one of my favorite movies. Like, if not, like at times it is my favorite. But like, they talk about how the people are suffering and dying, but they don't ever show it. And I know that that's like a very common theme in Star Wars. Like, we don't ever like get attached to Alderaanians before Alderaan is destroyed. Well, now we have, but like back then we hadn't. Or like the Battle of Coruscant, we don't really see that other than like what's going on in space. We don't see how it affected the citizens of Coruscant. Or like Hosnian Prime, we don't really see how that like affected the residents of Hosnian Prime and all that. But like, it's always cool in the supplementary material to like kind of go back and actually see like the impact these things have had, because Star Wars is a story about war, and so often we kind of forget that there's like everyday people that are being impacted by the war that is going on in Star Wars. And so I love when we finally get to see that.
For sure.
Because like in real, because that's all often those are the people who are going to be impacted by a war. Like war is like a thing that is rather fun to write about, I suppose, for like things like Star Wars. But then, I think what's great is Star Wars has always been conscious of the fact, especially in the supplementary materials, that yes, it's always the civilians, the ordinary people, air quotes, that get the ones who get hurt by this. And I think often the best stories are like the ones that like kind of shine a spotlight on that and kind of call attention to the conflict, because it gives the whole conflict stakes and doesn't just feel like a throwaway, laser light show.
Right.
No, I agree with everything you said.
Thanks.
Padme is captured once again. The Phantom Menace parallels. We cut back to Jar Jar and 3PO. They are just attacked by droids. And somehow Jar Jar manages to klutz his way into beating them with this giant magnet. 3PO gets stuck to it, which I was having a ball with that. Crab droids freaking show up. I say crab droids in all caps.
I love... Okay, so like I've talked about... I probably have, I can't really remember. But I've probably talked about how just I love just almost every design that was in the prequels. Crab droids are like up there for me.
Yeah,
I
no.
just fucking
Yeah.
love their
I think
designs
back to
so much.
the Revenge of the Sith game. I think there's a level in there where you have to
Yes.
fight a giant one.
Oh,
And
Yeah, you literally fight them on Utapau in the Revenge of the Sith game, and I'm just like, bro, what? Like,
Yeah,
I gotta buy that game.
I
It's one of
still
my
have it
favorite like
somewhere.
throwaway battles from Revenge of the Sith. Like just that one clone just like jumping on top
Jumping on
of
top
the
of the
crab
crab
droid.
droid.
yes, shoot him on
Yeah,
the top of the
so-
head.
Yeah.
That one clone, he's a badass. We should have like a
Like,
backstory about him.
All I'm gonna say, just I know none of the developers and writers of Survivor are listening to this, but like all I'm gonna say, you're giving us Magna Guards, you're giving us B1 battle droids. Hey, throw in some crab
Crab
droids
droids?
for Cal to fight.
They'd be a pretty
Wouldn't
good
be-
mini boss.
You say listening, but like it came out when Amanda Stenberg was cast for the Acolyte. She was like, yeah, I listened to a bunch of Star Wars podcasts. I was like, well, I got one for you.
It's Schrodinger's podcast. If she doesn't say what specifics one she listens to, she listens to ours.
Want to talk about some
Yeah.
Clone Wars? let's but
Yeah,
I love
yeah, just to note, great casting for a lady.
Yeah.
amazing.
Phenomenal.
I don't know if you all have seen.
I've had-
Amanda's playing.
I don't know if you all
I
have seen
wonder
The Hate
who
You
she's
Give,
playing.
but
It really did.
she is incredible in that movie. So ever since that has been rumored, I've been 100% on board with the casting. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But I think Jar Jar gets knocked off the ledge by the crab droid into the water, and 3PO, oh no, Jar Jar's been killed. I knew something like this would happen. I was in stitches, man. Like 3PO.
Can we
is
just
great.
start referring to 3PO as 3SO though?
Oh no.
I love threes. Threes
I
is
think
so
that was
funny.
the fun. 3SO! 3SO! Like,
It's 3PO.
early Clone Wars was just at its best when it was like fine to be goofy and weird. Like it always was so much better when it was just over the top ridiculous, and like that whole scene where Jar Jar's fighting off the crab droid and screaming about saving 3SO while 3PO's just like attached to this magnet, just like, go Jar Jar, get him, and like, oh, I love that.
It
Yeah.
was beautiful. And then he blows up the ship with the magnet. And I posted the image on Twitter, but that of like the mouth agape Jar Jar screen cap, I've been using that as a reaction image for like years. And I had no idea it was from this episode. So I saw it, I was like, wait a minute! And I just had to go back into my phone and I looked for it. I was like, that's the picture right there. And Jar Jar's got a lot of great reaction shots in this episode, but of course he manages to blow up the ship. But in the ship, they find guys. I don't know how this got in here, but they find a Jedi robe in the closet of Padme's ship. Now, how do you?
I
think
love
that
how this
happened?
is a metaphor for like forgetting your underwear at a one night stand's house.
No, like I said, they got caught playing a game of hide the lightsaber, and Anakin left his robe there. That's what I said on Twitter.
I love the way 3PO, like, it's so obvious that 3PO knows why the cloak's there, and then, like, when Jar Jar asks him, he goes, I wouldn't know. And then just quickly tries to steer the conversation away, like, I cannot say.
3PO's having like war flashbacks.
He's like, no, I don't want to think about those noises I heard. Just stop talking, Jar Jar, please. But
Voices.
Jar Jar takes the robe as a disguise. We get an I have a bad feeling about this from 3PO. And of course, the droids in their comedic glory are like, look, it's a Jedi! And they and then all of the hijinks start in this episode. They mistake him for a Jedi. The whole thing reminded me of that Age of Republic comic with Rex and Jar Jar, where Jar Jar's got the lightsaber for a split second.
Yes.
Like, that's all I was thinking about throughout this
For the
whole
longest
episode.
time, that is how I had my Jar Jar Black Series figure posed, is I had an extra Luke lightsaber. And I had him posed in that still of the comic where Jar Jar looks all badass holding the lightsaber.
That's
it must
so
have been
awesome.
like Mandela effect for me, like combining the two in my memory, because like I was like, I could have sworn in this episode he did have a lightsaber, but then that's just me mixing up the comic and this. But they still do a great job at like having him be. And then Ascender Far calls him Master Bombad at the end of the episode, which I was like Connor's loving this right now.
That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Bombad.
It was in
It was
fact
pretty bomb. Yep,
Bombad.
it was in fact pretty Bombad.
I mentioned earlier how when he hid underwater, of how I just loved how beautiful the animation was in those shots. And then we get to see that big fish for the first time. It's introduced as kind of like a foil for Jar Jar, and then eventually later in the episode he uses it to help defeat the droids, which was great. And I just love how, even though Jar Jar is depicted as like this klutzy character and he can be a bit annoying to some people, I love how he's always had like this connection to other creatures, and he's just always like he's a friendly guy. And even though he destroys everything in his path because he's a klutz, there's that. I was listening to my friends, the Kessel Run Relay, their podcast about the Phantom Menace, and they were talking about how Jar Jar got banished from Naboo, and it's like, he definitely killed someone, didn't he? Like, you just don't get like banished and thrown out.
Oh yeah, this man. Yeah, something went down. Someone died.
He got banished for Gungan manslaughter. Oh no.
But no,
what
to go back
vehicle do you think? Or did he use a vehicle, or did he like pop one of the bubbles or something and drown everybody inside?
Probably one of the bubbles.
Broke. I think
I feel like the bubbles is like is probably the more logical.
I always thought he broke Boss Nass's car or something. That was kind of what I took from that line.
That could also be true. But no,
maybe
to go back to one of your
shattered the
points,
peace orb, and they had to get a new one for the end of the movie. They're like, God damn it.
Oh no.
To go back to one of your points, Andrew, about the whole connecting with animals, I think that's honestly one of my favorite tropes in Star Wars, because like it kind of goes into the sort of a character really connecting with nature and sort of defining that part of themselves through this earth and through sort of the natural environment of the world. And connecting with animals is just one way to do that. And just a really cool art. It's just a really cool trope to me that we especially see with Ezra.
Yeah, no,
and
100%.
It grounds Jar Jar as well. It gives him a kind of emotional grounding, because like, I love Jar Jar. I've like, Jar Jar was my favorite character for years as a kid, before I like kind of switched to Obi-Wan when I got older. But like, I always hated that Jar Jar it always upset me that Jar Jar got so much hate as a character, and I love that there's been a lot of reappraisal of him in more recent times, especially of Ahmed Best as well. And he's so good. He's like so good here. He's basically just slipping back into this like it was like just yesterday that he did Phantom Menace. But like, again, to expand on your point, Andrew, I think what's great about the way Jar Jar's portrayed in this episode is it's very much in the same vein as Phantom Menace, where, like you said, he's a klutz and he destroys everything in his path, and he can even maybe be annoying to some people. But like, Padme and 3PO, the way they kind of look at him, they have a more complicated view as him, because it's like, he can be a bit much sometimes, but he's our friend, and we respect him, and we see him as like someone like worthy of admiration and respect, because like, deep down, because like Jar Jar, he means well, and like, what's great is we get to see him be more than just like, because if this was like a like a Phantom Menace type person writing this story, he would be reduced to like a coward. He would just be running away the whole time. He wouldn't have any redeeming qualities whatsoever. But like, he's the one who keeps driving the action. He's the one who wants to save Padme. He wants to help. He cares about his friends, and I think it's really lovely that Jar Jar has that empathy, like, deep down.
I think a great quality about Jar Jar as a character and how he's like depicted in universe is like, yes, he can be a bit of a nuisance, but he's not like considered one by the people around him. Like, they care for him as a person. Like, real quickly calling back to Brotherhood, this isn't a spoiler, but there's a scene where Anakin's talking to a group of younglings, and he says, "I'm sure you're familiar with my really good friend Representative Binks." Like, they all like him as a person, and they all like enjoy being around him. It's just, he's a bit of a handful. So it's very clear that he has his best intentions at heart, even if he might blow up a couple ships in the process.
He has his best intentions, even if he doesn't know how to handle them correctly.
Now, is he still the reason that Palpatine got those emergency powers? Yes, but he didn't know what he was doing. So I'll give him a pass. He was being manipulated like we all were. But we cut back to Padme in prison, and we get a little bit of an Attack of the Clones callback. She uses her hairpin to escape from the cuffs. It's like, just thinking back to the line, it's like, what about Padme? Well, she seems to be on top of things. A pun, and also showing that she's gotten out of there before the two Jedi Knights were able to. She gets back with 3PO. What were
that's so great. I was just going to say, it's so hilarious that she tricks the droids by basically pretending a Jedi snuck in there.
Big, strong Jedi's in here. And they're like, what?
Oh, thank you, Master Jedi. They're like, what? A Jedi?
I love when the droids were like, have you ever killed a Jedi? Like, no.
No, me neither.
Wait, no. Oh, God, I just spoiled 2 episodes from now.
I think that was Lair of Grievous.
That was Lair of Grievous.
That was like the one.
I'm not looking at my notes. I'm confused.
That was like the one comedic moment in that episode, was that droid scene. It would fit in this episode, though. I can see why you get it mixed up.
Definitely would have.
There's also that great scene where 3PO like tricks the battle droids when he's walking down the hallway. It's like, oh yeah, the Jedi went that way, or whatever he said.
Yeah, he was like, oh, that was quite impressive.
I have the line because I wrote it because I really found it so funny. The Jedi has been spotted in the South Hall, and then they run away, and then he says to himself, I think that was rather clever.
That's such a 3PO thing to do. Like, he loves when he does something. He's so used to being caught in the middle of chaos that he loves when he's able to like do something efficient and like actually get on with his task, because that's what he lives to kind of like do, to accomplish things. He doesn't like chaos. He doesn't like mess.
I agree. So Padme and 3PO reconvene. We get the line we talked about earlier, which I think was one of the best, which is, the ship has been destroyed. Battle droids, no. Jar Jar.
Jar Jar.
Just beautiful. I think he shows back up again, and he's sent back into the water. And Padme, I think this was my favorite line in the whole episode. Was Padme was like, I think Jar Jar's dead, 3PO. And 3PO goes, not again. Poor Jar Jar.
Not again.
Not again. I was shocked at how much I found this episode hilarious. But we talk about how he formed that connection with the giant fish earlier. And that comes back at the end of the episode, because he takes out all the droids and Viceroy Gunray with the help of that giant fish. Showing that maybe, even though he isn't a Jedi, and I think he says, yeah, I'm just a Gungan, at the end of the episode, but he has the heart and the spirit of a true hero, like the best Jedi should be. And Senator Farr says, LOL, nope, not joining the Separatists, and joins back with the Republic. Viceroy Gunray is arrested, and it sets off our next 2 episodes. We get the aforementioned Farr calling Jar Jar Master Bombad, which I think should just be Conor's title going forward on this show, if I'm being completely honest.
Jedi Master Bombad.
I second that.
Bombad, my God.
Yeah, that is dope. You're welcome, Master Bombad.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
It's like, there we go.
Immediate.
So Palpatine sends some aid to Roidia, Farr and Padme reconcile, and we end on a happy note. So yeah, I see this episode get shat on a lot by people. When I was looking at a couple ranks earlier, like right after we did the Downfall of a Droid episode, because I was like, okay, this has to be at the bottom of everyone's list. And there was only a couple where it was, and I saw this near the bottom of a lot. So I was like, oh, shit. But I don't remember, like, being a huge fan of it when I first watched it, in my first watch of the show 7 years ago. But I really enjoyed this episode this time around. I thought it was hilarious. The animation was great. I love the look of Rhodia, like I said. It was great seeing a Padme story without having a lot of tie. Like, the only tie to Anakin we get in this whole episode is the robe. Like, he's not mentioned really by her. He doesn't come in to try to save her at any points. It's just all Padme on a mission. I loved the politics of this episode. I just really had a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah,
it's
I did as well. Yeah, like
I'm very
remember,
nostalgic for it.
Yeah, I remember like
I feel like for
watching
me
it.
personally, it's because I think I had an Uncle Anna Lego figure, if I'm remembering correctly. I think that
sweet.
they did a set from this, and I'm pretty sure there was an Uncle Anna Lego minifigure. And so I always specifically remember watching this episode because I had like the DVD of season 1 after it came out, and I would rewatch this one.
Yeah,
you know what? I did. He came with the Separatist, the shuttle that came with Nute Gunray and 2 battle droids.
that's really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I like a lot of those early Clone Wars Lego sets. I'm lucky enough to have a couple of them like still in box, like we talked about in the first episode. So I got to go out and I got to find some of them that aren't several $100. Because
I'm so overdue a rebuild of like I have a bunch of Clone Wars era sets in Lego, and they're all just sitting in a box somewhere. I need to rebuild those. But yeah, I overall liked the episode. I think it was very okay. When I first watched it, I thought it was okay, and then like rewatching it all these years later, I was like, it's just a really fun episode, and it's just a really nice spotlight for Jar Jar, especially after all the hate he got in the prequels and like how his role got reduced down because the so-called fan outcry was so loud and obnoxious that they had to reduce his role. But like, I'm glad that he's at least getting the love from the Clone Wars team, and like as we're gonna see down the line, I like that they kept the streak going, and they always kind of were very clear. We have a soft spot for Jar Jar. We like Jar Jar, and we're gonna treat him with the care and respect that we think he deserves. And like, see, I looked this up while we were talking as well. So like, the reason he was banished is that he crashed Boss Nass's Hey Blibber, which is literally his personal submarine. So he actually did get banished.
You were right.
How the fuck did he get in it?
Yeah, he somehow wrecked Boss Nass's car, and that's why he got banished. So he didn't kill anyone. he just broke the boss's car.
Damn it, Jar Jar.
Nice.
You sit in big doo-doo now.
Oh, how rude!
But now it's time, because I was doing some research, and I have a couple behind-the-scenes notes for this one. One of them, I think, is going to get us all very upset, because we were deprived of greatness. But the first is, this is the only episode of Season 1 that Ahmed Best voiced Jar Jar. He is voiced by a different voice actor, B.J. Hughes, for the rest of Season 1, but Best returns to the role in Season 3 onwards, which we saw when we did Supply Lines, because that's technically a part of Season 3. So Best is gone for a bit, but then he comes back to the role, which is nice. And then here's the big one. So apparently, Quinlan Vos was originally slated to appear in an early draft of Bombad Jedi. He was to be working undercover and actually using his Force abilities to make it look like Jar Jar was a Jedi. He was eventually cut because at the early stages of production, the studio didn't have the ability to include many new characters because of the time it took to create a digital model. God damn it!
Oh, that would have been so good. They should redo that for like Bad Batch or something, or Tales of the Jedi. That would be so good.
In this would be my second favorite arc in all of Clone Wars.
Yeah, like the whole episode would just be like top tier.
Don, you just gave me an idea. It would actually be really, really fucking funny if like they do a Tales if for like a season 2 they did a Tales of the Jedi episode and it was just Quinlan making Jar Jar feel like a Jedi.
He was there the whole time. He was just like underneath the floor.
Yeah, just like moving the plates and stuff, so Jar Jar was able to like get away and do like.
That's why that
stuff.
one like gate in the floor was like randomly open that Jar Jar fell into.
Yeah,
Quinlan just messing with him. It's like, yeah, we talk all the time about how Quinlan only shows up in one Clone Wars episode. Well, apparently, Apparently wasn't always supposed to be that way. I read that and I was literally like, are you kidding me? Like, that would have been so great. But at least we got a fun episode out of it, but we were deprived of Master Voss once more. But I think he's coming soon because they name dropped him in Kenobi, so that makes me think that he's going to show up in Bad Batch or something.
We have to get more content with him.
Because I love Quinlan.
Definitely.
But let's move on to Cloak of Darkness, which, again, I loved this episode. It was directed by Dave Filoni, written by Paul Dini, which I believe is his first episode that he worked on in the series. The moral is ignore your instincts at your peril. I think the team up of Luminara and Ahsoka is a really cool.
I love
pairing.
it.
Yes.
I fucking love it. It's such a great dynamic.
I
I now wonder, like, if Luminara trained Ahsoka.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
I
like
would
what
be
if?
a really
that
cool
now.
headcanon.
Yeah, and like what if Anakin trained Barriss and Luminara trained Ahsoka? That would be wild.
The funniest thing about that, though, is like seeing Ahsoka not with Anakin just really showcases how much she's like Anakin.
Yeah.
Like, she's always
That
so
is
just
true.
like throwing herself
Throwing
into
herself
stuff. Like
in
when
there.
she tries to throw herself down the elevator, Luminara just like snatches her. Like, what are you doing?
She's
Yeah.
like, I wasn't
Yeah.
really gonna.
And then when she tries to interrogate Gunray early on, it's like, that's Anakin. That is...
Oh,
we literally
yep.
see
She's like, "I
Anakin
was
do just
joking."
that later in the
Yeah.
show.
Exactly, because it's like because the whole thing with Ahsoka and Anakin that we see is like it's not the aggression necessarily that's the problem. It's the lack of patience because because Ahsoka's not actually looking to kill him. She's just using the tactic of intimidation because she's impatient for him to give up information. Whereas like Luminara is like perfectly content to just like play the long game and like let him sweat, which honestly is not necessarily the right move for this situation as we later see. But like it's great, like you said, it's great having these two combined here because Luminara is very much a prequel Jedi because she's very detached. She's awesome, but she's almost kind of indicative of what the Jedi Order is by the time of the prequels. Just like
We
Mace
definitely see that later on too.
Luminara's been getting a lot of Mace
not
Windu
Luminara,
hate recently
Barriss.
by Star Wars Twitter, and I don't know.
No,
I love Luminara.
Really? I actually don't. I actually haven't
I've
seen any
seen
of
a
it.
lot of
I
Luminara
haven't
slander
seen it either.
lately. So
She's always one of my favorites simply because of her look. That like we see her for like 2 seconds in Revenge of the Sith.
yeah,
I had the minifigure of her with the clone turbo tank as a kid, but then her in 2003 Clone Wars is just like the coolest.
yeah. I just want to say, like, because I brought up my Clone Wars sets, I'm pretty sure one of these boxes I have over here, Luminara, is actually a minifig in one of the sets. So
You better open that shit up.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's like $400, so I might have to if I need money.
But it's a Luminara
That's
minifigure.
very, very true. But again, I love these episodes.
I have the $555 Captain Rex Funko Pop. You don't see me listen to that on eBay.
I have the Old Man Rebels Funko Pop, but that's about it for that one. But I do love this team up. And I really love later on when we get one of my favorite arcs in the show, when they go back to Geonosis, where it's Anakin and Barriss and Ahsoka and Luminara. So getting to see Luminara and Ahsoka here teaming up by themselves, I really loved, and it was a nice preview of what we're going to later see.
Yeah, that's the arc that really showcases her, Luminara as your traditional Jedi, because she's all like, well, if the Padawans die, they die. And Anakin's like, what?
I think a big reason she gets a lot of, or at least some slander isn't she, when we get to the Martez sisters, isn't she the Jedi that kind of was just like, oh, you lost your home, I'm sorry, your parents are dead? And then
I believe
moved
that
away.
is the case.
I think so. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually confirmed, but the way they described her was
it's like,
led many to believe that.
that's Master
'cause, like,
Luminara. But I don't know.
It's like it's a character flaw, isn't it? Like the fact that she is just a little too detached, and that can lead to like somewhat apathy, somewhat, and even like a degree of arrogance. Because like as we see, she doesn't believe that she needs Ahsoka's help, and if anything, she's the one in this episode with a lesson to learn, and her kind of like more subdued arrogance when compared to Mace Windu kind of is the main reason that the events of the episode play out as they do, which is interesting considering that, like, you know, you'd expect this to be like a humbling for Ahsoka, which it sort of is, but it's more humbling for Luminara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's anything like the Mace Windu slander, because some people hate, like David hates Mace Windu. Like, yikes.
My brother hated Mace Windu for years solely because he loved Jango Fett and he hated that Mace Windu killed.
Yeah, I mean, reading Brotherhood, they didn't make Mace Windu that likable, but
No.
But yeah, one of the things about Luminara is for years, I had no clue that she was on Kashyyyk with Yoda in Revenge of the Sith until I watched it, and I was like, wait a minute, is that Lumin? And then I figured it out. But another connection to the Kashyyyk scene, Commander Gree shows up in this episode, and this haircut, it's something.
The funny thing about
it's
Gree showing up
something.
is I remember at the end of the last episode when he shows up, I was like, wait, why the fuck did Gree show up? And then we see Luminara, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's why.
Yeah, and he's got his head all cut like he's just hit pause on his life.
Yeah,
Like it's
boy got the double mohawk.
his haircut is literally the pause button on a remote.
He's got a little bit of an accent, and I'm like, okay, this is what you've done. Perfect. I love it. He's got his Revenge of the Sith armor is some of my favorite clone armor ever.
My god, it's so cool.
And then Yoda knocks his head off, but we'll save that for another day. But I was like, oh shit, it's Gree. And then I also said, oh shit, to what we see in a couple seconds, which is the Coruscant Senate guards, which I'm a big fan of. I just
real
love
quick,
the look
you
of them.
said we're gonna get to that another day. We totally need to do a Revenge of the Sith episode when we finish our Clone Wars rewatch, and we can talk about how much the show has impacted our viewing of that.
Definitely.
It's like how when the horror that went through our mind when we finished the Ambush episode, and we were like, yeah, one of these clones Yoda kills in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
We're like,
He kills two of them.
fuck.
You heard it here first for the Republic Pod fans. Revenge of the Sith special episode coming in 6 years when we finish our rewatch.
We'll do it for the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith.
Everyone's going to be like
25th anniversary.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be like celebrating like the two Avengers films that
Star
are coming
Wars
out.
episode 12.
And then we're like sitting here like going, "Oh, hey, remember Revenge of the Sith?"
Yeah, it's like, yeah, Avengers 8 and 9 coming out a week apart from each other. But let's talk about Revenge of the Sith. So yeah, we get introduced to Captain, I believe his name, Argaius, I believe is how it's pronounced. And immediately, I was like, something's up with this fucker. This guy is shady as shit. Something is up.
I literally refer to him to the bitch-ass blue dude.
I wrote later on, I was like, why does he remind me of Prince Charming from Shrek 2? Like when he's got his hair out.
It's the hair.
I'm like, oh.
It is the hair.
It's the hair and the kind of like sneery voice that he has, and
he's got that thick ass jaw too. Like no one in Clone Wars has like those really thick facial features, and this boy's just out here looking like a Giga Chad in season 1.
Yeah, and he just loves himself as well. You can tell, like, he probably just kisses himself goodnight in the mirror before he goes to
literally,
sleep.
yeah, he spends like 3 hours every night just staring at himself in the mirror.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy. This guy.
How come he doesn't have a visor? Like, the other guys have visors.
We gotta see his face. We gotta know
see,
that he's
the armor, though, the Senate Commando armor, why are they wearing clone armor? Senate Commandos have existed for like centuries.
I can tell you why. It's entirely because of budget. Bit like, as I watched the featurette.
Yeah, that is why.
Gillian Plunkett literally says, like, in designing them, they couldn't do the like flowing robes that you see in Phantom Menace, so they worked their way around it by giving them blue clone armor and just having that enlarged shoulder pad that they wear, which is kind of clever because you see him later on use the shoulder pad to like block blaster fire, which is just kind of
what's funny though about the armor is when he pokes the button on the door to let Gunray out with his elbow,
Yeah.
Canonically speaking, in live action, that part of the armor doesn't exist. So if he had done that in live action, he wouldn't have been able to press the button because there's no back piece to the elbow armor like that. It's flat on the top.
He would have been like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "Oh, I'm trying to open the door." It's like, "Well, that didn't
He's like,
work."
"Why won't it work? Why won't it work?" Oh, it's not animation. That's why.
We see Count Dooku showing up again. I just love Dooku's Clone Wars voice, but he sends Ventress to invade the ship, free Gunray, and this is a big Ventress episode, which, again, watching this, like, I think I finished Brotherhood and then watched this episode, and it was like, yeah, fuck yes.
Yeah.
Like, I was in a big Ventress mood, and this was a great Ventress showcase, this episode. We get to what we...
He's one of my most underappreciated characters, and I don't know why. But I love this episode with her in it. I do,
so good,
truthfully.
He's freaking great.
Yeah, it's a really good script as well from Paul Dini, because like I'm a big fan of his anyway, because of like, you know, Batman the animated series, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and he's just he's really excels at like the kind of like darker, more villain centric episodes, and like, you know, Ventress here is genuinely menacing. She feels like a real threat. The way she kind of slips into the sneaks into the ship and just like starts taking it down from the inside. And I also love like her little banter with Ahsoka when she like drops in, and Ahsoka calls her the hairless harpy.
Yeah.
And she calls it's like, if anything, she's
the hairless harpy had me in stitches. I was like,
Well, that was like when she goes to
brutal.
kill that clone, and his last words are, "There's a bold eye."
Yep.
a bald what? A bald what?
She's like, "A bold what?"
God.
Yeah. And she calls Ahsoka like Skywalker's filthy, obnoxious little pet, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's so savage.
I still can't get over it.
Why'd she have to mess around with that poor little droid so much? Like, let that man just go in and out. Don't make him all scared like that.
I was waiting for that droid to get cut down. But
I was scared. I was horrified. I was preparing myself to be absolutely horrified at 327.
Speaking of that scene,
cut down.
I am almost positive the sound effect that they used for her throwing the thermal detonators is the same sound that is used in Clone Wars 2003 when she's like stealthily taking out the clones on Yavin 4.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And also here's a little tidbit like about those. So like because I when I was writing Scars of War for like SWEF, I was like, there was a point where I wanted one of the characters to use a thermal detonator that was like, because I remembered reading somewhere that there were like magnetic clamp thermal detonators, and I couldn't think where I found the story where it happened, and then literally when Ventress was like throwing them and attaching them all around, I was like, oh yes, this is the episode. So I was just kind of like, it's a cool little connection, and I love that. I love the way they kind of look and like the sound of them like attaching and stuff.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. Ahsoka, we see her trying to interrogate Gunray, like we talked about. It's Anakin to a T, and we see the clashing between her and Luminara throughout the whole episode. The super battle droids board the ship, and I was like, this whole shot in this extended scene of like the battle droids getting on the ship and then fighting off the clones, I just loved how it looked. I just straight up said the animation here rules. And we get this one shot of Ventress coming in and like this POV shot of her killing the clone. Oh my god, I was screaming. It was so cool. Like,
there was a couple POV shots in these 3 episodes, I feel like. There was another one. Oh god, I don't remember what, but I know that there was another one.
But
it might have been in Lair of Grievous.
I think it might be, yeah.
But like, I just remember, like, I was like, oh yeah, like we're getting some cool stuff here, like with the animation. Like they're doing different stuff, they're taking risks, and I was like, just seeing stuff like this and then going back, I'm sorry to do this, but going back to Downfall of a Droid, I'm just like, and then
why couldn't y'all have been better?
But then just this episode, like I was watching this and I was just blown away the whole time. Like, this episode is kicking so much ass.
That's what's amazing about Clone Wars, isn't it? Like you can go from like downfall of a droid with like Ron Perlman's Trandoshan ripping ass through his ship, and then you go to this and you've got this like really, really like dark kind of like exciting action-packed episode. It's like it's season one's very interesting.
Real quickly, I just want to point out, we were just talking about Bombad the whole time, but Scotty J-Ro just followed For the Republic on Twitter, so that is...
Oh,
So that is...
yes.
That's perfect timing right there.
And he just retweeted my me tweeting about us recording, which is awesome. So yeah, thanks,
That
Scotty.
is awesome.
Love that, man.
Appreciate you, dude. Very
Thank you,
Bombad.
Scotty.
So... I just saw that. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. The universe knows. They know.
Star Wars Twitter.
But something must have happened with Luminara at this point in the episode, because I just write in my notes, I might start feeling like how Conor feels about Aayla Secura towards Luminara at this point. So I don't know what it was, but
I mean,
4 a.m.
I
Andrew
can't
must have
blame
been
you.
down bad. Something. I think it's the voice. Voice.
Dude, I can't blame you. Luminara's voice is phenomenal.
So I don't remember what it was, but Ventress does show up, and we get very briefly Ahsoka and Ventress going at it, which I was like super duper hyped for. But then Luminara shows up, and it's the two of them. Ventress, it gets Ahsoka in like Gunray's pod, holding pod. Gunray's able to escape, and then Luminara shows up, real quickly frees her, and we get like the two of them going at it. And then Ventress sets off the thermal detonators, which I just got reminded of The Force Awakens during this scene.
Yes.
With Han and Chewie.
With Han and Chewie attaching them to Starkiller Base. I hadn't thought of that.
It was like that immediately just popped in my head. I was like, oh, it's The Force Awakens. She escapes down the elevator shaft, and then we get that scene we were talking about where Ahsoka just tries to go at her, immediately just rushing in without thinking, and then Luminara calms her down, and she goes after her by herself. When we do get that fight between Luminara and Ventress in the like generator room,
I love it.
God,
I think
One-eyed Luminara,
and
she's
then
just like me.
the super duper red eye that they give her. Oh,
Yeah.
so cool. This I was shocked.
they also do
of
the
how
Anakin
good.
and Obi-Wan force push thing where they both
do.
force push into each other
That
and
was
blow
great.
each other back.
That was
Yeah,
one of my
that's-
favorite parts of the duel. I think the Luminara and Ventress, and then the Luminara Ventress versus Ventress and Ahsoka. I combine them
Yeah.
because I just feels like one long duel, and I don't have
Yeah,
to split them
this
up.
whole
and
episode was like a 15-minute long lightsaber battle, like extent, like it's so good.
I also
love
really love
this-
how
I
right
love this
before the
duel.
fight, right before Nute breaks out and they're all talking, and Nute has to like give his 2 cents on like what it means to be a good soldier, and he's just like, I don't ever stick my neck out for anybody.
Yeah, and they all like glare at him like, what the hell are you? What the hell do you think we want your opinion for?
love that.
There's
he's
another
like,
I had to point that out.
later
he's
on.
like,
It's like, no, don't
crack me
hurt
up.
me. I'm an innocent pawn. I'm like, yeah, okay,
Yeah, literally.
yeah, all right.
He's
bud.
I could just.
He's hilarious
so
in this
funny.
episode because he's just jumping between like he's going like, oh, I want to negotiate. Oh, I'm ready to negotiate. Oh, I have a good feeling about you, Gaius. No, I have a good feeling about
Yeah.
you, Assassin. Like he's such a coward and he has such like loose morals, and it's hilarious in this whole episode.
But
I could just go on about this duel
Yeah,
in
I
the
know.
episode
The
because this is one of my
lighting,
favorite
the saber.
favorite Clone
Y'all
Wars
also
duels.
noticed that one little random cut where the music kind of stops and then picks back up again. I was like, oh, there's the commercial break.
Yeah, I noticed that during
God.
Lair of Grievous, I think, or no, it was
Yes.
Bombad Jedi. I think I noticed exactly where the commercial break was. I think it was when Jar Jar was.
This one,
scaling
it
the
was
building.
like when they were in the generator room and Ahsoka is standing like behind it. I think it's right after Luminara gets knocked down by like the tube, and then Ahsoka comes in. Like the musical cue just completely shifts, like mid note, and I was like, "Oh, there it is."
Yeah, like they're actually there's like a tell for each of all 3 episodes. Like in Lair of Grievous, there's like the bit where like Kit Fisto says, "I'm afraid I must request your surrender," and then there's just like a little cut and it's the way you can tell it was a commercial break. But yeah, the whole fight. The whole fight is really good. I love the sass that Luminara.
It's so cool seeing the
gives.
two of them with their green sabers.
Yes.
That's probably also why I really like it, because just the way the green sabers were lit against the fire and Ventress's red
There's
saber.
also that shot of Ventress where she's like standing over Luminara. It's like that upward shot of her, and she's very like silhouetted in front of like the burning generators and everything. And it's like, damn, some of this season 1 animation was just so clean.
Yeah,
Now
I just love how
that's all Jedi must. It's a great line.
Great line. I love how Luminar at one point is like egging her on, like, yeah, this is Dooku's fighting style, but it's raw, it's like untamed, it's weak, and Ventress just screams at her.
She's like, you don't insult my technique.
Just a great Ventress episode. But, guys, in what might be the biggest shock of this episode, our Gaius is a Separatist double agent. I don't know what was...
The blue bitch!
Yeah.
The blue bitch!
This is what I pointed to. I said in my notes, I said, I don't know what betrayal shook me more, this or Stubby. They both got me right in the heart.
I remember watching this the first time.
Stubby. Forgot.
Yeah,
I always called him
Goldie.
I always call him a little bitch.
Yeah, I just go by Anakin's. Goldie is Ahsoka.
Yeah,
dude, I always see him as okay. So I wasn't on for those last 2 episodes, but I just want to say real quick, my only 2 good parts about those was the one shot where they're jumping down when they're flying down into the Separatist facility on top of it.
Yeah,
that shot was glorious.
Yeah,
and R2 absolutely bodying Goldie.
Absolutely.
His death scene was so satisfying.
Oh, it was. Yeah, you definitely dodged a bullet there, Conor.
Yeah, the death scene was great, but as I described it, the rest of the fight was like, yeah, so R2 goes like, and then Goldie goes like, and then they just keep bouncing off each other.
Nah. R2 basically was like, fuck you, and just absolutely, I
just have this mental image in my head.
I love R2. I love R2 fucking bodying Goldie.
I love R2. I have this mental image in my head now of just like George Lucas like pitching this episode to Dave Filoni and co by like holding these 2 action figures of R2 and Goldie and just going, so like R2 goes, and then Goldie goes, and then R2's like, fuck you, and he just bashes him off the stuff.
I was just about to say, I want them to do like an episode of Clone Wars where during a duel it just cuts to Dave Filoni just with 2 action figures just hitting them against each other. And that's
just like George showed me how to do.
God, but yeah, he's a traitorous bitch. But we all kind of figured that out. He fist fights with Gree, and Gree is knocked out by
his voice too.
Yeah. Again, he's a fucking Shrek 2 motherfucker. Like that's all I was thinking of the whole time. But Gunray uses one of the rifles and knocks out Gree. I put ... so he can be killed by Yoda in Revenge of the Sith, so we got to keep him alive here.
Exactly.
All the other clones eat it.
Because this is like a rare example of like, because oftentimes when you have to keep someone alive, that can be a bit of a problem when like writing an episode. But I actually think it helps the episode here because you need someone for like having to keep Gree alive means you can have Argaius basically say why he betrayed the Republic, that he doesn't want pointless servitude, and you get some digs at like what normal soldiers think of the clones, which is like it's interesting and it furthers the universe, and then you get like that unexpected payoff to Nute Gunray saying, "Oh, I don't risk my own skin unless I believe I have to," and then you basically see, because Neimoidians, as we see in Brotherhood, they all live life by risk assessment. They like to judge a lot of their decisions based on the level of risk, and you can see Nute Gunray saying, "Oh, the risk to my life is minimal. He has his back turned. I can hit him with a thing because this will benefit me most."
Yeah, no, like we pointed out, I think when we did the Clone Wars movie of it's very clear Rex is a main character because he would have died. Ventress would have just killed him, but instead she knocks him out. It's very clear when someone's got to be kept alive for plot. But, cool. I mean, I like Gree, so I'm glad they didn't, retcon everything there.
He has plot armor for now.
For now. But
now.
one thing
So he loses his head.
I didn't really know how to word this well, but I put this in my notes because I was just loving Ahsoka and Luminara's duel. But I was like, it's crazy how Ahsoka and Luminara spend the entire episode fighting Ventress, and then 5 seasons later we see Luminara's Padawan and Ahsoka's best friend using those same sabers that Ventress is fighting with in these episodes to fight Anakin. And I'm just like,
nuts.
It's when we get to those ones.
It's like poetry.
Barriss needs to come back at some point.
We need a conclusion to that story here, Dave.
Yeah.
I know it's not going to probably happen, but like
Jedi survive.
Ahsoka?
If she showed up in the Ahsoka show, I would be so happy.
Ahsoka would be cool.
It would be great.
I don't know if I see it because like it's so far in the future and we don't know how long.
No, and I feel like that show's very much like the Rebel sequel now. So like relating it too much to Clone Wars stuff that never touched Rebels.
I mean,
we'll just make it too messy.
They have brought Huyang back, so if they can bring Huyang back, I think they could find a way to bring Barriss back. Yeah. For sure.
I mean, Tales of the Jedi too. Like, there's a couple things. I think Bad
Tales
Batch
of the
would be
Jedi.
really cool.
I just need them to announce not only more seasons but more episodes per season. Because what is this, like 6 episodes?
I think they've
for
said
the first
6,
season.
yeah, but
that's kind of ridiculous.
I wish they announced it as a multi-season anthology thing, because if it's just the 6, I'd be like, eh. But I mean, I don't know. A Bad Batch would be cool. Ahsoka would be cool, but like she's got to show up like at some point. Like you just don't. You can't just be like, yeah, no, she
they
just
can't
got
just go
gunned
forever.
down in like the Republic prison by the clones. Like we can't just have that be it. Like something had to have happened. You can't write her character off like that and then just not follow up on it. Like if it's that like the biggest reveal in that season, essentially. Here's me figuring it out. I said, our guy has such a douchebag haircut. He reminds me of Prince Charming. So, like, that's where I must... But, like... But our guys and Gunray managed to escape, which I would, like, completely forgot that Gunray just straight up escapes in this episode. And the episode ends on, like, kind of a downer note because we do see the Republic lose. And I feel like that's the first time we've seen that happen, like, in this show of, like, oh, no, it's not like, oh, happy celebrating at the end. It's... They lost. But our guys is just straight up killed by Ventress. He's like, yeah, I mean, I'll praise Dooku for you myself. You know, it'll be great. I'll speak of my plan. And then she just stabs him right in the back. The sound that Ventress's saber made when she kills him was like, I don't know. I was just really obsessed with that particular like saber ignition. It just sounded so like loud and like booming. The saber sound design in the show has always just been great in my mind. But we see Luminara and Ahsoka speak with Yoda and Anakin. Anakin and Ahsoka leave to meet up with Kit Fisto, even though they don't in Lair of Grievous, which I was confused by watching those 2 episodes back to back. And then Luminara and Ahsoka part ways. I adored this episode. I thought it was... Like I said, it had like kind of like that, even though the stakes weren't nearly as high, but it had that like Empire Strikes Back kind of ending of they lost the battle, but we'll have a little bit of optimism at the end with that really nice scene between Luminara and Ahsoka. I loved the pairing of those two. I wish we had more of it in the show. I think it's such a great pairing, like we mentioned. Ventress was so badass in this episode. It was a great showcase of her character. Getting to see it on full display here. Paul Dini's writing was great. Great having someone like that work on a show like this. And yeah, this was a great episode, and like I was like, man, this arc is just really killing it. And they no spoilers, but they stuck the landing. I will definitely say that. But this is definitely going to be one that I rewatch more in the future because I loved it way more than I was expecting.
There's also like a bit of foreshadowing for Siege of... Well, not foreshadowing, but like a bit that rhymes with Siege of Mandalore, because like the bit where Ventress steals a clone comlink, because I thought that was the first time anyone had done that in Siege of Mandalore.
Yes, I did write in my notes. I was like, Maul Ventress handshake emoji using clone gauntlets to get secret intel or something like that.
Exactly that. That's it, because I was like, oh, so this happened there first, which is like, it's just super cool. I agree with you completely, Andrew. This was like this is probably one of the best showcases for Ventress as a villain in the whole show. Like she feels really menacing. Like my favorite moment of the episode is her like when she has the sabers clashed with Ahsoka and Luminara, and she just starts laughing maniacally at them both. It's just great villain moment. It's like she's like full Sith at that point, which is awesome, but it's also like it's jarring in a way because we know where her story ultimately goes, but in a good way. But yeah, like really good episode. I'm definitely gonna like revisit it more, I think.
Yeah, no, I 100%. 100%. This was such a great episode. But now we move into the last episode of the arc, Lair of Grievous, directed by Atsushi Takaichi, I believe is how you pronounce it. I probably butchered that really bad. The only episode he directed of this series, and what an episode it was. Written by Henry Gilroy, the moral is, most powerful is he who controls his own power. This episode, I'm just going to say it, just rocked my socks off. It was so damn good. And this is only the second time I've ever seen it. And yeah, I will be revisiting this.
Has always been one of my favorite episodes.
Because one, Kit Fisto. Just that's all you got to say there is Kit Fisto.
My boy.
But this was really the episode where I talked, I believe, during the Malevolence episode about how Grievous has always been a very disappointing character for me. Like, he's always been cool, and I loved him in the Tartakovsky Clone Wars. But ever since then, it's just been like, he could have been so much more in my mind. This episode kind of changed things for me. I think I'm fully on board with Grievous now, because he is great in this episode.
It's actually scary.
They made him into a horror monster, like a slasher villain, and I love that. Like, they do that with Vader in the comics, and they did it in Rogue One. And what better way to do it than have the character that was created as a parallel to what Anakin would become do it in this episode? And I just loved it. We start off, Kit Fisto is chasing after Gunray. They're brought to this planet, Vasek, I believe is what it's called. Again, another great-looking Clone Wars planet. I love all the fog, the look of the planet, the music. Again, I put in all caps. Kevin Conor going off in these episodes. And again, it's just something about when I watched this episode. Kit Fisto's voice. I said, and I quote, Kit's voice is so sexy. So,
yes, it's so sexy.
It's Phil Lamar.
Phil Lamar decided to do Kit in a Jamaican accent. I'm forever grateful because
I mean, of course he's gonna rock it. Yeah, it's like it's Samurai Jack. He's awesome.
Yeah, no, that was great. I also loved, just aesthetic wise, how R6 and Kit are like matching, like they're wearing their matching colors. It was I loved it. I just love. It's just one of those very small things, or like I just love people's specific Jedi starfighters and like their astromech droids and like how they like match with them aesthetically. Speaking of Jedi starfighters, I have to tell a horrifying story. I got this on stream the other day, but like I was getting ready to stream, and my saber on my desk or my shelf that I have a couple of Lego sets displayed on fell over and completely shattered my Utapau Starfighter Lego set from like 15 years ago.
Oh no.
So I was like, oh no. So I was going to do something completely different, but I spent the entirety of that stream just rebuilding it. So, because I was able to pull up the manual on, because Lego's website, they have like an archive of all the old like instructions manuals, which is nice.
It's a lifesaver.
That killed me, because like that was the one I was like, I spent years trying to remember where I put that, and I found it still built in the storage unit. I was like, I gotta put this on display because I loved that set as a kid. Which Kit Fisto minifig came with that one, but I have no idea where that is. I just have the Starfighter and I don't have the hyperdrive ring anymore. But there is that. I just got a Streamlabs notification and it scared the shit out of me. So there was that. Because I'm recording this with Streamlabs, so that was scary. But we are introduced to Nahdar Vebb, Kit Fisto's old
My
Padawan,
boy!
newly knighted, and I think this episode does a great job at showing, and Brotherhood touches on this too, again,
Yes.
how a lot of Padawans are kind of forced into knighthood early because they need more generals for the war. And Nahdar
Yes.
is a great example of this, of someone who was not ready for the trials. He wasn't ready to get promoted to knighthood because his overconfidence and his arrogance. There's a lot of Anakin. There's a lot of Attack of the Clones Anakin in Nahdar's character this episode. And it really
Absolutely.
ends up being his undoing by the end of it. But
So we can definitely assume that Nahdar was the same age as Anakin, so I would love to see the two of them as, like, younglings together.
that would be cool. Also, just not Mon Cala Jedi, like, fuck yeah. Like,
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh
He looks
yeah.
dope. He looks really cool. Like, and I also watched the behind the scenes thing for this, and like again, Killian Plunkett talks about like how they tried to incorporate some of Admiral Akbar's look into his Jedi robes, like the white collar is very kind of like influenced by Return of the Jedi, but they also wanted him to look convincingly Jedi, and it really kind of works as like a marriage of styles. And like as you said, because I was going to bring up the Brotherhood connection.
Yeah.
It's just really cool that like the way the dialogue kind of suggests that Kit Fisto wasn't even there. Well, not even suggest, they just say that he wasn't even there for him being promoted, because they're all getting promoted they're all getting made knights in a hurry because the Clone Wars is taxing the Jedi to the absolute limit, and it's causing the Jedi to kind of, like as Yoda will later say in the episode, be at risk of losing who they are. And we see that with Nahdar Vebb, how like he has this, like he's so well realized in such a short amount of time. He doesn't feel very one note. He feels like a Jedi who has a good heart, but is kind of like overcome by his need,
eager.
by his need for
He's
revenge.
way
Yes,
too eager.
he's
And
way too eager.
impatient and militant.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I love about Nahdar Vebb so much, is that he represents an early example for how the Jedi start to lose their way as the war goes on.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's crazy that we only get this appearance from him. This is all we ever seen of him, and yet, like, he has so much character to him, and like we get, like, honestly, we get his full story just from this one episode. He's just so well written.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's voiced really well by Tom Kenny as well. Like, he's got like he channels some of that kind of like Admiral Akbar voice, but there's also kind of like some youthfulness there as well. And I just love the like design of like his eyes and stuff, like how he, like when he narrows his eyes, he almost kind of, you can feel the anger kind of simmering just below the surface.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Such a great visual.
It's always
detail
pulled
there.
back by Kit too, just like, he never jumps the gun and stops him from like unleashing his anger and aggression. But like as soon as he does, Kit's just always there to basically be like, all right, Nahdar, come on now.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
like
definitely.
that's the kind of key difference between like, because again, this episode doesn't throw Kit under the bus, but it does kind of offer a look at this more detached way of detached traditional Padawan master dynamic compared to like Obi-Wan and Anakin, or Anakin and Ahsoka. Like, because like if Anakin was jumping in and doing this, we know Obi-Wan would immediately scold his ass. But like Kit waits until Nahdar has done something to like reprimand him, because like yes, he is technically a Jedi Knight now, but you know that bond was of master and apprentice was never truly severed, because like as we said, Kit wasn't there.
It wasn't there for his promotion, yeah.
So there's kind of that dynamic is still sort of present, really. So we kind of see how it functions, and how, you know, maybe if Kit had been a little more hands-on in like mentoring him, would Nahdar be so eager to jump the gun and have been so quick to lose his sense of self, or would he have turned out the same way? It's an interest. It kind of has that subtextually, I think. It doesn't kind of like say it out loud, but it kind of hangs there like a question in the air, given like Kit Fisto's characterization as like the jolly Jedi, the one who smiles even in the face of like dire odds and like carnage unfolding.
That smile. That damn smile.
A charming debonair smile.
I love Kit Fisto so much, man. But yeah, it's a really great character study for Nahdar and also for Grievous, as we see later. But I'm just
Yes.
all for more Mon Calamari characters. Like I love that species, and when we get to the Mon Cala War episodes, I mean they're not my favorite episodes, but the look of the planet, it's some of the best like animation and like design that the Clone Wars has are those episodes.
Besides that shark guy.
Oh yeah, the shark guy. Love
Riff
me.
I don't fuck with the
Riff
shark
fucking
guy.
Love me the shark
Tamsin.
guy. Riff Tamsin, my
Riff
guy.
Thompson.
My
What
freaking
an
guy.
asshole.
Yeah, but
Also,
another- go ahead.
just real quick, there's like this lighting detail at 4 minutes and 21 seconds where it's like the battle droid. It's when Nahdar, Kit Fisto, and the clones are seemingly going to capture Nute Gunray, and they're about to fight the battle droids. And this is where that line comes in that you said, Jake, where it was like, have you killed a Jedi before? No, or
Yeah.
whatever the line was. Just like, I don't know what it was. The way the lighting came off the droids was just beautiful to me. It really, I love it.
Another thing I really loved is the clone armor here, specifically Commander Phil's.
Yes.
I love the dark red with the white. It looks
Even the
so great.
battalion armor, like I don't know what battalion this is, but it's so simple but like clean and satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like they really knocked it out of the park here with those. Another thing that I thought
I
was
also
actually
didn't even realize that all of the Phase 1 clone commanders have like those yellow dashes on the top of their helmet. Like I never noticed it. Like Wolf had it, Rex had it, Phil has it here.
I
think
never noticed that either, honestly, until you just brought it up.
they're on like the
Oh
sides.
yeah, I
over
just pulled
by,
up a
like,
picture. Yeah, I see it now. Like
yeah,
the
I
three little
never
yellow
noticed,
lines.
and they all have those, and now I'm like, why?
Yeah, no, that's that has gone almost 20 years without me noticing, and there we go.
Same.
So yikes on my end, but that is a really nice. That must be like signifying that they're a commander. But I just love. I genuinely prefer the later clone designs more, but I am a sucker for a lot of the Phase 1 clone looks, especially the clone commanders. Like they just look really clean, and Phil
I
was
love
great.
Phase 1 so much, but like the actual models used in Clone Wars, the Phase 2 is just so clean.
100%. But one thing that I actually thought was very clever on the Separatist end was them getting tricked into thinking Gunray was behind that chair, and it was actually a hologram. I was like, oh, okay, you got me even there for a second. I was like, okay, I don't see Gunray, so there's probably some fuck shit. Like it's probably just a recording or something. But then it was a hologram, and then Dooku shows up, all cross-legged, and Fisto says,
Yeah.
Count Dooku, you have
So
a great
dramatic.
talent for unexpected appearances. I just thought that was
I
a
love-
great line.
So two things. First, they do a very devious little trick with the audio because when Gunray is talking to the droids and his back is turned so you can't see him, the audio is completely clear, like he's actually there. And then when the hologram comes in, the voice immediately starts sounding a little electronic, like he's speaking through a hologram. It's just a very clever little trick to misdirect. I guess they increase the signal or something. But then there's the second part. Kit Fisto's line about Gunray. Oh, I should have known Gunray wasn't here. If he'd have seen us, he'd have run off screaming like the coward he is. It just made me laugh for some reason.
Yeah, no, they really hammer home in these episodes like, fuck Nute Gunray, he's a fucking coward.
Fuck Doom Gunray.
He's a complete wimp.
Sleazy, slimy little bitch boy or whatever we said earlier in the episode. Like, exactly.
Yeah.
But Dooku pretty much...
I forgot what I said. I forgot what the shirt is.
We gotta look back. How are we gonna make the shirts if we don't remember what the line is?
Well, we are recording.
That's very true.
Preserved in the archives.
Yeah, yep. But Dooku is like, all right, I can't give you Gunray, but I will offer you an alternative prize. And they eventually find that they are in a warrior's shrine. The build to this I thought was very ominous, and then we find out that it is in fact Grievous's lair, because that's the title of the episode. But also I love the reveal of it. I love the statues showing like Grievous before he was a cyborg, getting that design.
I cannot believe that this dude has statues dedicated to himself. Like, that man's ego is so big.
Oh,
For
definitely.
sure.
Another thing that I noticed, there were two things. One, again, me being a nerd here, but the sound editing. Like, when you see the Grievous statues and you hear, like, just the hints of, like, Grievous's voice and, like, his grunts, I just really appreciated. They do it again when Grievous is getting repaired later in the episode, where you hear his, like, sound of when he dies in Revenge of the Sith as they're taking his, like, skull plate off, which I loved, and I immediately was like, okay, that's that. The other thing is I made a very weird, like, comparison in my mind when they show the shot of, like, the statues of Grievous's heads in the lair. I immediately thought of the end of Spider-Man 2 when we see Norman Osborn's lair for the first time as Harry discovers it. I have no idea why that came into my mind. But I was like,
the lighting.
oh, it's Spider-Man 2. But
Yeah.
that came into my mind. But I love the reveal here. And of course Grievous has this fucking egotistical prick has a whole shrine dedicated to himself in a past life. And Filoni, there's a really great interview on Wikipedia that they put in here for this episode, because they're like, doesn't this counteract Legends, where Grievous's origin is a bit different? Because in this one, Grievous is like, I chose to have these enhancements. And Filoni basically says Grievous's explanation in this episode is more of a look into Grievous's own mind, because that's how he interprets it. But then also, so pretty much saying both stories are canon, but this is how Grievous chooses to view it to fit his narrative and to fit his mindset, which I really love. And I just love, again, the character studies that they pull off in these episodes. This one is just, it's downright fantastic. And then another haunting thing was that little table of, it looked like just severed Padawan braids. It's like Grievous not only, and then Kit Fisto picks up a lightsaber. I'm like, this guy is scary. Like I get it. Like, lightsabers, cool. You want to collect those, cool. I got 3 of them myself. You're collecting people's hair, bro. That's like, something's wrong with this guy.
I'm the sus.
Little sus Grievous.
I
Sus
love
Grievy.
his Dr. Droid. I love his Dr.
The sassy little doctor guy.
I love that guy. It's so good.
There's a line specifically that kills me. He's like, "Don't be upset with me. Don't be upset with me, Master. If you were a better fighter, we wouldn't be having this conversation."
Yes.
And I'm like, "Oh my god!"
I said in my notes, I said, why do I feel like if this episode was made in 2022, he would be voiced by John Mulaney? Like, I just immediately was like, why is this a John Mulaney droid showing up in 2008? But it's a little sassy gay doctor droid. Like, I was a big fan.
He's the only character that could sass Grievous and live through it, aside from Obi-Wan, because like Grievous needs him. Like, and I love that it's such a great touch that he's voiced by David Accord, the sound designer, because like he's Matthew Wood's frequent collaborator on the series.
Such a good job.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
It's great. Like you watch the behind the scenes thing. They're like doing the voices. Master, you have an urgent message from Count Dooku. It's just great to watch them.
I just hear that, and I just think that's John Mulaney, and I know it's not, but like I can't get it out of my mind.
Said he based it off the an actor from Bewitched. I can't remember the name of him, but like he based it off a guy from Bewitched, like back in the 60s. So
I was doing a little scroll through of Grievous's Wikipedia last night too, and I still can't get over the fact that Gary Oldman was supposed to play him in Revenge of the Sith. Like, I still can't get over it, and he literally was ready to record the lines, and then the union dispute killed it.
George directed him.
That's insane. I'd love to hear that stuff someday.
I love Matthew Wood as Grievous. Like, I think it fits perfectly. But I want to hear what that was like, man. Like, that
absolutely
would have really changed things.
It would have been crazy.
But go ahead.
The whole thing. Yeah, sorry. Like the whole sequence, because I almost kind of like skipped over that. The whole sequence, like you said, of Grievous, the reveal of Grievous in the hallway. I love the way that they suggest that new backstory, because like you said, that could just be like his interpretation of events, but then it couldn't be. It actually might be like how things actually happened, and I actually kind of prefer the idea that Grievous wanted to be a Jedi but couldn't because he couldn't be force sensitive because he was too egotistical, or like something about his emotions kind of severed him from the force. So like he opted for the physical way of beating the Jedi, just replacing his limbs with droid parts gradually. And I think that's a great antithesis to Vader, because Vader had all this thrust upon him, all of the robotic stuff. That wasn't his choice, whereas Grievous, it's entirely his choice. So it almost kind of like makes him more of a mirror for Anakin, because they've both made very different decisions and they both had different levels of control over these transformations that they went through. The whole thing is just immaculately
Even in the
done.
colors, having Grievous have the all-white armor compared to Vader's black, like everything was intentional there. And
absolutely,
that was just one of the things that I just, admittedly, when I was younger, just never put two and two together, that Grievous was supposed to be a parallel to Vader. But then as you keep going and you realize, oh, wait, hold on, all of these villains throughout the prequels are supposed to be portions of Anakin, portions of Vader. You're like, oh, okay, I get it now. It was one of those things that took a bit, because I was just a kid being like, ooh, this is cool. And then you dive deeper into it and you're like, this is awesome. But I did. This is where I put in my notes that this is the most I've ever liked Grievous in any canon content. Like, it's still not like 2003 Clone Wars. Like, that's just untouchable. But it came damn close. Like, he was so great in this episode. I love how the clones use the cables to just rip Grievous's legs off. Like, that was
so cool.
That was so cool. There were a couple moments in here in this episode where I was like,
reminded me of
so
Attack on
cool.
Titan when they tried to pin down the female Titan with the
cables, yeah. So
there's also like a bit of physical comedy as well, like when he like laughs at them and goes to jump at one of the clones and the clone just shoots him in the face, so he has to run away. It's just, I don't know why that bit always makes me laugh.
Oh, the thing that made me laugh was 5 seconds later where he just picks up a clone and throws it at Kit Fisto. Like a still alive clone trooper just picks him up and hurls him at Nahdar and Kit.
It's literally using them as projectiles.
Yeah, but then we the fact that he's putting up a fight still, first with his sabers and then just like crawling around like a little spider boy, like with no legs. And he's like still like he's throwing people, he's whooping ass still. Like I said, they made him into like a horror monster in this episode, and I was digging it so much. Of like, they made him scary, they made him threatening. They had such a like unsettling, creepy aura to like almost everything in this lair, and I was digging it all up. But again, we see Nahdar's overconfidence getting in the way again. It's a recurring theme in this episode, and it ends up being when he tries to take out Grievous alone later. Let's just say it doesn't end great for him. But again, the scene with the doctor I loved. I thought it was awesome. But then we see that someone has deactivated Grievous's Magna Guards, and I love the visual of them all activating at once. It reminded me of, again, this happened way later, but Mando Season 2, when all the Dark Troopers activate for the first time, it gave me vibes of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I put in my notes, Magna Guard with a rocket launcher, Magna Guard with a rocket launcher. Like, that visual.
The way that Magna Guard just like kind of shoots it off and then watches it go, I was like, "Oh, that Magna Guard's badass."
That was a badass shot.
That was such a phenomenally like angled shot, and just everything about it. And every time I see Magna Guards, I'm just cannot help but think like, we're gonna get to fight these motherfuckers in like
Survivor.
Less than a year in a video game. Like, that's just
so
wild.
Excited.
Gonna be so cool.
I mean, when do Magna Guards not look badass? Let's be real here. But that one in particular, that shot, I was like, he just looked at it like, yeah, I just did that. I just blew up these clones. They're gone now. Like, loved
They'll
it.
get their heads cut off and they will still try and kill you. It's nuts.
Grievous tries to speak to the Jedi, and we get maybe my favorite I have a bad feeling about this that we've seen in the Clone Wars so far, because Nahdar just says it, and then just immediately the floor drops from underneath them, and one of the clones just gets incinerated to death. It was like, oh, it really was a bad feeling. Like, it happened like right off the bat. And then Grievous, he sends his pet after them, Gore, which I described as a great look of like a mix of Lord of the Rings and Star Wars is Gore.
Yeah.
He kind of,
I heard Gore and I'm like,
Thor: Love and Thunder.
what? Yeah, I was like, what?
Fucking Christian Bale shows up. You're like, oh, they had this casting in mind way earlier than I thought. But yeah, they go into more explanation of why Grievous became a cyborg, and we got it in his point of view of the story, which we talked about earlier, and I really loved it. Again, this episode did so much to make me appreciate Grievous more, and just made him so much more of a compelling villain, because they just made him scary, and he had a lot of great one-liners in this episode. It was, like I said, the most I've loved Grievous, and I would actually like. I want there to be like another Battlefront style game where you can play like a map of this lair. Like, that would be so cool.
Oh, that would be sick.
that would be really awesome.
I don't know. I've never played the Clone Wars Lego game. I don't know if this episode has a level based off of it or anything like that.
It does.
It does.
It does.
So
and you can fight
cool.
Gore as well. You fight Gore in that game.
I don't remember playing this one.
Oh, I think it was one of the last levels I played of that game, because I only played like half of Lego Star Wars 3, but it's in there. It's definitely in there.
So
I remember fighting.
I gotta play that.
It's on
game.
Xbox, so guess what I'm gonna go download?
Yeah. But we just see Gore just completely strangle Phil to death. So R.I.P.
Rest in peace, my boy.
I actually can tell you what he actually see. It looks like he gets strangled, but what actually happens is it's so brutal. Gore breaks his spine. Gore literally breaks his spine. He slams him into the floor, and you hear the bones snap. And then they zoom in.
That was when Nahdar chops off his tail.
Yeah, it's like you literally like that. You hear the snap, and then it cuts like to a close up of Phil's body, and you can see how limp he is now, because he was struggling against Gore before, and then like that's just before like we see Gore live up to his name, because he gets his tail chopped off, his arms like go flying, and then like Kit Fisto just like stabs him in the neck, and he does that like Godzilla like roar.
Yeah. There is that's probably the one of the other two brutal deaths in this episode, because I was shocked by another one later. But yikes! Yeah, you remember, kids' cartoon. Everyone, that's what people say about this show.
Very
People's
kiddie.
Spines getting ripped in half. Super
There's
kiddie.
kind of a Return of the Jedi parallel, because like Grievous is actually upset that Gore is dead. He seems one thing.
He said he seemed genuinely devastated that Gore died. Like, he started screaming and then breaks everything around him. Like, turned into Kylo Ren for a second. But
yeah, it reminded me of Malakili, the Rancor Keeper, being upset over the Rancor dying. Yeah, and the Kylo Ren and Grievous would be best buds, because they both love trashing shit when they're angry.
They'd love each other.
Yeah.
But this gets Nahdar pissed. He's seeking revenge, and Kit Fisto is like, "No, that's not the Jedi way. You got to get a hold of yourself." And this is where Nahdar like really just gets in his head, and there's no turning back from here. Also got to mention that Kit just takes Gore out. Like, he pulls his best Obi-Wan in the Geonosis
That's
arena.
exactly what I thought.
I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, it's just like Obi-Wan.
He's like, he saw Obi-Wan do that in the arena, and he was like, I got to do that one day. And
fancy little twirl and stab.
Got it. And then we see Dooku is kind of testing out Grievous. Like, Dooku was planning all of this. He's testing out Grievous's effectiveness, because Grievous has lost him quite a few battles in the Clone Wars lately. And Grievous gets super pissed, hangs up on him. And then I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Who killed? Because I have it written here that our little sassy doctor boy died. But who was it that got to him? Was it Nahdar? Was it?
It was Kit.
Fisto.
It's Kit Fisto. Like there's
Slice right through the chair.
Yeah, like he just cuts the chair clean in half. There's actually there's a really funny thing in the featurette because like Dave Filoni is talking with Henry Gilroy about how much he liked the character, and he just on the spot starts coming up with like a way for the Doctor droid to have survived. Like maybe his head still worked, and Grievous just takes his head, and the Doctor is just like constantly sassing him, like, "Oh, I always put you back together, but you don't put me back together. Why won't you take the time, General?" And Grievous is just like, "I like you better this way."
Reminds me of Korg in Thor: Love and
Yeah.
Thunder.
Oh my god.
But
Loved it.
no, so Grievous and Nahdar, they fight very, very briefly. And Grievous, I was shocked how brutal this was. He just pulls out the blaster and just shoots him in the chest repeatedly. I was like mid-saber battle too. Just like, oh, I got this other arm. I'm shooting you 5 times. It like literally
Peace, my
shocked
boy.
me.
Yeah, it's a very... No, you go, sorry.
I was just going to say the fact that Kit had to watch that and couldn't do anything about it because he was in another room.
Yeah,
Yeah, literally just water over the hollow.
It's the Phantom Menace all over again. Like but it's instead of like the Padawan, it's the Master this time watching his apprentice fall to like a agent of the dark side, which is just I like the parallels. It doesn't feel on the nose, but like, and it's also really practical as well, like from Grievous's standpoint. But it's also kind of a dirty move. Like, yeah, it makes sense that he would like get a blaster in his other hand and shoot him, but it's just such a dishonorable way of taking out a Jedi. Given how often like the lightsaber duels are like just lightsaber against lightsaber. But yeah, it was very brutal.
I knew he wasn't making it out of the episode, but I forgot how he died. And to see it happen like this way, whew, it got me. And then of course,
I never forget how my boy Nahdar died.
Yeah, this has probably haunted you for ages. But
ever since I was like 9.
He grabbed Grievous took his lightsaber, adding another one to his collection, and just screams about how he's gonna take down every single Jedi, like into like Fisto's face. And like again, he was scary at this point. And at that point you're like, yeah, I mean, we just did see him fairly easily take down a newly knighted Jedi. And yeah, wow. It got me. I gotta say that. But then we get another absolutely fantastic duel between Kit Fisto and Grievous. First of all, them dueling like in the thick fog. Fisto trying to escape, Grievous climbing up the mountain, going somewhere, and then they start fighting. Just great.
It's so cool.
But then dual wielding Kit Fisto with him and Nahdar's sabers.
That iconic shot.
That shot is fantastic, man.
I love the way the camera just like tracks the lightsaber flying out of Grievous's severed hand all the way into like Kit Fisto's hand, and then you have that cool pose of like him doing that. I also love there's like a really cool sound effect like when Grievous is like spinning his lightsabers, and they just like speed up the sound of him like of the saber twirl effect, so it seems more intimidating. It's one of the best lightsaber duels in the Clone Wars. I would say probably possibly the best one of season 1. I'm not sure, but it's up there. It's really good.
It was fantastic. Like I loved the Luminara and Ventress one from last episode, but this one was probably a little bit better. Like it was so
the way Kit like
good.
disappears into the fog too, and like uses that to his advantage.
Yeah, and you've got that shot of like Grievous just like looking around, spinning the lightsabers, and then he just turns his back, and then you just see his eyes like dart just to where like Kit Fisto is behind him. It's just so good.
I have nothing but great things to say about this one. It was literally incredible. He gets surrounded by a bunch of Magnet guards, but R6 comes to his rescue, and Fisto is able to escape. And then we get the moment where Dooku's talking to Grievous later, and he says, "Oh, I killed all the clones and the Padawan." And Dooku's like, "Oh, a Padawan is great, but to kill a Jedi Master, like that's very impressive. I'm very pleased." And then he's like, "Oh, Fisto escaped." He's like, "You still have so much. You could do so much better." And then hangs up on him.
He just immediately like he just goes, "So there is room for improvement," and then just goes like he doesn't even.
He's like, "Damn it! Why do you have to lie?" Like
Luke was like, "Man, you suck, bruh."
It's like, "Oh, you're great. Oh,
like,
I didn't kill
Fisto." Like, good. God damn it.
God damn it! Now I got it. Now he's still out there. Gotta.
You're doing so well, General.
Damn it. But then we get a great Yoda quote at the end of the episode where Fisto and Mace and Yoda are talking about Nahdar. And Yoda says, to answer power with power, the Jedi way, this is not in this war a danger there is in losing who we are. And that's really a big theme with the Clone Wars in general and with Nahdar in this episode. Getting to see a knight get way over his head, get promoted into a situation that he was not ready for, where Fisto felt that maybe he wasn't ready to not be Nahdar's master anymore, as we see several times in this episode, and for him to meet his untimely end at the end, or at the hands of Grievous, is it's a very sad thing to watch. But he left an impression, because one episode, it's like I'm gonna die in Supply Lines. It only shows up once.
I'm gonna die.
Yeah, I'm gonna die. But he only shows up once, but he left a lasting impression for a lot of Clone Wars fans. I thought this episode was goddamn incredible. Again, this is only the second time I've ever seen this episode, but it's one of my new favorite ones, like of them all.
Yeah.
It was super dark. The visuals were great. I loved all the horror themes. Like I said, a great character study for both Grievous and Nahdar. And it made me go from not really liking Grievous to really liking Grievous in just this episode. And everything about this arc, I absolutely loved. They were great for all different reasons. Bombad Jedi being like a very hilarious episode with some good politics in there. Cloak of Darkness was exciting action all throughout with the lightsaber duel, and then this was just a Star Wars horror story, which I loved. And it's very close to my favorite arc that we've discussed since we started the show, which I was shocked by, because I didn't know what to expect for this one, and it's really up there for one of my favorites of the first season now, watching it again. I had a great time with it.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of my top 5 episodes of season 1. And it's probably one of the best Clone Wars episodes, just in terms of a spotlight for Grievous. It's definitely the best of the Nute Gunray trilogy, for sure, which is funny because it's the one that has the least to do with Nute Gunray. He's pretty much out of the
He's only
story.
there for like two seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole episode, it just rocks. It's a good foray into creepy horror vibes for Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, this one's always been one of my favorite single episodes of the whole show, and rewatching the arc as a whole now specifically, it's definitely up there for one of my favorite arcs of the entire show. Just because one of my biggest complaints of Revenge of the Sith mostly is I feel like Nute Gunray, or Attack of the Clones too, really is I feel like Nute Gunray really should have been more of a prominent face in those movies. His role was important, but we don't really see a whole lot of him. So it's really cool to get to see more of that, and how his impact on the Clone Wars, what that really was, because we really don't get to see that a whole lot. And it just kind of makes it even more satisfying. I say that as Nute Gunray's biggest fan. It's so satisfying to see him die in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
That's one situation.
Even then, he's trying to bargain with Vader to keep himself alive.
Yeah, right. He's like, please, the war is over.
No, you don't. You don't bargain with.
I'm an innocent pawn again. Still, it's yeah, no, you're not. You literally invaded the whole planet, but yeah,
it is you invaded my wife's planet. You can die.
You can. I remember what you did. This is Don't think that we're cool now that I got a cool hood and my eyes are yellow. This is you're done, buddy. But yeah, no, this episode was absolutely goated. So it is kind of tough to choose, but out of the 3 we discussed, Lair of Grievous I would say is my favorite of the 3, but Cloak of Darkness was so damn good. But I got to give the nod to Lair of Grievous here, because I was just absolutely blown away by it. How about you guys?
Same. I'll also go Lair of Grievous.
Yeah, definitely. It's honestly it's an iconic episode too. I feel like when most people think Kit Fisto, they think of that shot of him dual wielding the sabers.
Yeah, definitely. Connor, what do you think?
I Don't know.
Perfect.
Yeah. I like them. I like them all. Some more than others, but I don't know which one's my favorite.
All right, I'll take that. I'll take that one. So next week it's gonna be a bit.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So next week it'll be hopefully it's gonna be the Hondo arc, which is Dooku captured and the Gungan general. So we're gonna get to see our favorite pirate in action once more. But it's only 2 episodes, so I think we discussed this, so I think we can announce this. But I think next week what we're going to do is we'll do those 2 episodes, and then we're going to do a Q&A. So if you have any questions for us, we'll leave it open on Twitter, on the SWE Discord, and all our social media platforms. If you have any questions for us, we'll put that open for you, and hopefully we can talk about some good stuff, and hopefully you guys have some fun stuff to ask us, because we don't have that many episodes to talk about next episode. So that should be fun. I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully we have a fun time with it, getting to do some new stuff on the pod. So thanks everyone for listening to this episode. I had a blast talking about these ones. So until next time, where can the good people find all of you before we head out?
They can find me on Twitter at DepaBanana. I also co-host another Star Wars podcast, Knights of the Nerd Republic, over at the Nerd Academy podcast, where we talk everything Star Wars pretty much. And I also write articles and stories, none published yet, but one was announced that I will get to shortly, over at the Star Wars Editor website, sweditor.ig.com. Recently on on the SWE Discord server, we announced a new initiative and a full slate of new stories that we have coming up. One of which I'm writing, called The Hidden Kyber. I have it set shortly after the events of Fallen Order, and it features Sir Junda and Cal Kestis. And I'm excited for you all to read it once it releases. So
I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, that one I have been hyped for a very long time. So I am so
So
excited
I hope
to
I
see,
can deliver.
so excited to see what you come up with for that one.
I helped Conor figure out his writing process all the time, so I already know way too much about this story.
Yeah, no, based on what Conor has told me about this story is going to be really good. Yeah,
I hope so.
I'm hyped. Don, how about you? Because you weren't here last week.
All right, so yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Donovan Mead, where I tweet about Star Wars, politics sometimes as well. You know, tweeted a lot about Marvel recently because of Comic-Con. You can also find me on Instagram, Donovan_McComish, where I post stuff mostly about my cats and the books that I'm reading currently. And there's also Star Wars Editor.org, where I like Conor, I write stories and articles.
Perfect. Jake, how about you? Because you also weren't here last week.
Yeah, my Twitter is Jedi Jake _. Both J's are capitalized. I, much like Don and Connor, mostly tweet about Star Wars. Sometimes you get me talking about politics. Also, very recently, been talking a lot about Marvel because, holy shit, that was a weekend.
More than I was expecting.
That was freaking insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, massive strike of lightning just outside my window. Holy shit. And there's the thunder. Whoa, okay.
Palpatine's outside your door.
Palpatine. Or is it Yoda striking the tree? We never know. But yeah, Star Wars Editor Discord, we just announced the massive 10-story initiative, Dawn of the Order, like just under a week before this episode will end up airing. I am writing 2 of those stories, one being Kylo Ren Solo's Heart, the other being Danger Squad, Perils of Morality. Both of those will be coming out in the next 12 months or so. We don't have our dates announced yet. Y'all will figure that out soon, and I think Austin will kill me if I said them here, so I won't do that. But yeah, I would say that I write articles, but I haven't written one of those in 2.5 years, so that would be a lie. But yeah, we're always in there. Feel free to chat.
Perfect. And you can find me. I've consolidated all of my social media under one name now, so you can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and TikTok at Starlight Andrew. You can follow the pod on Twitter at For the Repub Pod and on Instagram at For the Republic Pod. And join us back here next time where we're going to talk about Hondo and we'll answer some fun questions. So until then, may the Force be with you, always.